Project. I'm your host, Marc Stevens, author of Government Indicted. The website, of course, marcstevens.net. Glad to be with you here live September 9th. It is September 9th, right? Yeah, September 9th, 2017, live from the fortified compound in Mesa, Arizona. We're here live every Saturday from 4 to 7 Eastern Standard Time, 1 to 4 on the West Coast of North America. And it's Sunday morning down under, so glad to be with you. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Appreciate the support of the show. And I really appreciate, for my channel, the video from Wednesday's show, the actual HD video, not the stream. I took a few segments from that and posted it, and it's actually doing pretty well so far. And so check that out if you had a lot of good stuff, because I have the documentation regarding Brett's ticket being thrown out in California. So that's included in there, and you can also get the documents. You can download them at marcstevens.net. And I'm going to start putting, if there isn't a video for a call of shame, then I'm going to start doing that. And so I noticed yesterday that one, and I know I've got to get back and start doing those again, but there was a pretty good one with a Canadian prosecutor. So it's only about 6 minutes long, so I put that to video also and put that up on YouTube. It's already gotten almost as many views as the MP3 has gotten in a year on the website, which is kind of sad. But hey, it's getting better, and I do appreciate the new people subscribing to the YouTube channel. But if you want to join me on a big show today, you should be able to do that. And I tested everything before we started here today. And the number is four. What the hell? The number is 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020 for you to, and I'm able to, finally, I tested it before. Well, I have to use two computers again, so if anybody knows why I can call the caller line, but it won't accept my passcode on the Windows machine, but it does on my Mac. So now I've got the Mac connected, through the mixer. So we should be able to bring you up on the air. If you don't, you can also reach me on Skype, but instant message me first. It's Frank Rizzo 3, Frank Rizzo with the number 3. So a lot of stuff to get to today. We will be live again Wednesday. I'm hoping to have some better equipment that the stream will look better, but I do appreciate people tuning in for that. It's on my No Stay Project Skype channel, YouTube channel, and of course I am No Stay Project on their Twitter. So I usually don't do this, but I want to test to make sure that my caller line is working. So he's been on the show before. We have Rick in Illinois. Rick, welcome to the show.
Oh, hey, Mark, great to be back. Wanted to give you an update on what happened last Wednesday.
Oh.
You probably remember we had a conversation a couple of Wednesdays ago. I had the court event on Wednesday morning. It did go rather poorly. It threw me off a little bit. Here's what happened. I get in there, and he says, "This is an administrative hearing. I'm an administrative judge. I don't work for the village." Okay, so it kind of took me off that fair and part of it, just seeing as a conflict of interest. And what ultimately happened, I'll try to give you the condensed version. It was he said this verbatim: "You are there's no guilt or innocence. This is liable or not liable. You're considered liable unless you can prove otherwise." And that totally flipped. I was not ready for that. So he calls a few people, and they go on their way. And now it's my turn, and I'm there next to the prosecutor. Here was an interesting fact: the prosecutor never once looked at me. It must have been some act of theater. The guy had this scowl on his face. It was the strangest thing. And I was smiling and, just trying to be a normal person standing there. I wasn't bitter or angry. It just felt weird. Anyway, so he says, the judge says, I notice you're not represented here today. That may intimidate you. Would you like counsel? I said, at this moment, I would not like to give up my right to counsel. I just merely need some information. And I asked the question, did you receive my motion to dismiss, my motion for discovery, and my Brady request? Yes, I did. Yes, okay, great. Did you review them? Yes, I did. And I'm going to deny them. Oh, okay. My response was, you're going to deny them, therefore they must have been satisfied with some evidence. Is the evidence here today? No. So it kind of threw me back again. So we kind of go banter back and forth and back and forth.
Okay, well,
you're asking too many.
Well, Rick, we'll get back to the too many questions. They really don't like that. They really don't like any questions, period. But let's break this down a bit as we go. Why did it throw you that he said it was not guilty or not, that it was actually liable, not liable? Why would that throw you?
Well, I wasn't expecting that term. And then the fact that he said, you're considered liable unless you can prove otherwise. Well, I didn't have any evidence. I don't have any video. There was nothing I brought. I was going to ask you where your evidence was. And I proceeded to do that. And I got completely shut down at every moment. So he says, listen, you're asking a lot of questions. I've got a lot of other people. Would you be willing to wait to the end? And I thought, oh, okay, I must have hit a nerve. I must have got him going in a direction. So he doesn't want anybody to hear me ask my questions. So I said, I'm amiable to that. So he calls about 5 or 6 other folks.
Oh,
there's nobody left but myself. And, yeah.
Well, the thing is here, all right, see, what he's doing is he's opening up the door. If he's saying that you are liable until you prove otherwise, what he's saying here is that the prosecution has met their prima facie burden and it has now shifted to you. So that's why anyone in a situation like that, what you fire back with, so the prosecution has met their prima facie burden on evidence proving your constitutional laws apply.
I got that question out. I said, is there evidence here that the Constitution, state statutes, codes, rules, and regulations apply to me? The prosecutor made the best effort he could to not laugh. He must have bit his tongue or bit his something. He thought that was hysterical. And then the judge jumps in, listen, I've had enough. You're not going to come in here and take over my courtroom. And I thought at this point, you know what, this is just going pear-shaped. So it didn't go terribly well. And, I didn't pay the fine yet, and he gave me the explanation about the appeal. And everything. There was no due process. There was nothing. It was just a complete steamroll.
And is that pear-shaped again? So now we know what that means. We all, yeah. I even... I posted that it was the video from the Wednesday show a few weeks ago. Okay, so the prosecutor is making the claim that because you're physically in Illinois, these laws apply to you. And so when you're asking if he has evidence of that, his response was to laugh.
Yes, absolutely. It was. Again, that kind of threw me. I wasn't expecting him to essentially bust out laughing and catch himself, as if there was, how could you doubt me? I'm your master.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So all you're doing is, what it sounds to me, all you're doing is asking if the prosecution has met that burden of proof. The prosecutor, instead of providing the evidence, laughs, or he could have laughed and said, dude, it's right here. But he didn't. He just laughed. And so the judge's response is interesting. So you asking for evidence of the prosecutor's claim, which he's supposed to have, or it's prosecutorial misconduct. And the judge thinks that you are trying to take over the proceedings. Did I?
Yes. Yes,
wow.
His word for word was, you're not going to come in here and take over my courtroom.
Wow.
So
okay.
I must have hit a nerve, and I must have embarrassed them a little bit.
Yeah, obviously, because the gaslighting didn't work from the prosecutor. Okay, we're up against a break. We'll be back, and we'll talk more about Rick's adventure in legal land in Illinois when we get back. So don't go away. We've got a lot more to cover. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. I'm Marc Stevens, and talking with Rick in Illinois.
Mark?
Yeah.
No, go ahead. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I hit the wrong mute button, but that's because I'm used to the caller line being on the different channel. But anyway, we're talking about Rick in Illinois. And for those just tuning in, this is typical stuff. The way they mischaracterize things and just flat out lie about what you're doing. So all Rick was doing was taking the prosecutor's claim that the laws apply just because he's physically in Illinois. That's the claim. They're not saying that that's not what they're accusing you of. You're asking if he has any actual proof that that's true because you're at a trial, and the prosecutor laughs at your question of whether he has proof because that's what adults do. And and the judge falsely accuses you to take the focus away from the prosecutor's lack of evidence. He is going to falsely accuse you of coming into the court and taking over, because nothing is, it's so easy to take over a courtroom because all you have to do is start asking questions. Wow.
Yeah, I wish I had my notes with me. I had my brother-in-law with me, and he was taking some notes, and I wrote down my flow chart, which questions I was going to ask. And I'm traveling on the road today, so I'm not at home. I don't have that. But one thing I did get to ask, and I think my timing was off. I said to the judge, "Is the officer's testimony irrefutable?" And the judge's response was, "I don't know. Ask him."
Oh my God.
And I didn't know what to say. It totally threw. Ask him. Well, of course he's going to say it's. I didn't know what to do. It really threw me.
Well, how much did you spend enough time or a few hours role playing?
Yeah, my brother-in-law and I did. I listened to a lot of the YouTube videos with Joe and Gary. I beat those up, took a lot of notes, and had what I thought was a pretty good flow chart to kind of walk down. And after we left, I'm sitting there in the car with my brother-in-law. I said, "Man, that was intense. That was cool. It was worth it. It was great to get in the lion's den with these savages." And he said, "Man, you did good. You stayed on your point. They tried to divert you. You kept back to your question." The judge said, "3 times now I've told you. He's met the burden." So they distracted. I'd go back. This is my question. I got to go back to it. And I need more work. That's all. But it was great, man. It really was.
Well, I'm glad it was a positive learning experience, and obviously you do have grounds to appeal. But let's walk through this. Wow, there's so much to unpack here, but it's not out of the ordinary. I think what we want to do is we want to ask instead, are the prosecutor's arguments on, let's say, for jurisdiction that the laws apply, are they irrefutable?
Okay.
Remember, everything is on the prosecutor. We said that we're always keeping the focus on the prosecutor's burden of proof. The cop at this point is just what the prosecutor is using to support his claim. So we want to make sure that we're always saying, has the prosecutor or is the prosecutor's arguments irrefutable? Because at least at the time you probably asked that question, the cop may not have been on the stand yet. But it gives the judge...
I don't remember.
It gives the judge an out. The fact that he's forcing you to be there that day, he's already accepting the prosecutor's claims is at least true. You just want to know if they're irrefutably true.
Okay.
Fine distinction, but it can make a difference.
Sure.
Look, everything they're going to try to evade... actually addressing your question head on. So that's why we say everything's an evasion. That's why one of the reasons why I posted that call yesterday with the prosecutor in Saskatoon. Because all they do is evade. And that's what the judge is doing. Well, ask him. Well, I'm certain that if you were to ask a cop a question like that, then the prosecution would object, and he would reflexively grant it, or sustain it rather. So, when they tell you that they're denying the motion, you want to make sure you are close. You always want to make sure that we're asking questions. So you can raise your objection, but say objection, so you're satisfied that the prosecution has met their prima facie burden on jurisdiction and that the laws apply to me. Because
I did get a question in on jurisdiction, and he said, the fact that you're here is jurisdiction. And again, I kind of stopped and I, wait a minute. No, wait, hold on. I've got a response for this. And I kind of stumbled a little bit. I think he certainly kind of sensed my weakness and in the inability to they go so quickly. And I'm looking at my flow chart. Okay, what do I want to say to this? And I think I kind of blew it there. But what was the other thing I was going to mention? Oh, I mentioned Brady. And he said, well, there's discovery. There's no discovery, so that's it. And he mentioned something about Brady, and I didn't object. I said, Brady always applies. And he said, well, not here, it doesn't.
No, it applies in all criminal proceedings.
Okay, well, then.
So it's only criminal proceedings. But discovery, some discovery should, at least immediately prior to the hearing, should still apply. But this idea of what do we do when the judge says, but you're here? Well, objection. Is it your position that, like with the prosecutor, that just because I'm physically in Illinois, your laws apply to me? Yeah. Well, I know that. Yeah. Could you stop repeating the prosecutor's claim? I know.
Right.
Where is the proof that just because I'm here, this written instrument applies to me? Is there any evidence that the prosecution could put on the table to prove that? That's why we're here.
Of course, yeah, they were not going to go down that path. He had met his prima facie burden of proof in this administrative guide, and there was no turning them back. I do want to look into what the appeal will be. If you recall our first conversation, I thought it was going to be at the county building, and turns out this whole thing happened at the police station in a hearing room there. The next step is, he said, go to the county building, you can file your appeal. I don't know what the cost of that will be yet, and I'm betting it's going to probably be pretty salty. So I'll probably just pay it was a $50 fine, and then it was $40 for the court costs. But you know what? They earned their $40 on Wednesday.
Jeez.
They did.
Well, it may not cost anything to appeal at this point. It's not like you're in Minnesota where it's going to cost you $550. So I would find out what it is, because I can help with the paperwork because we have templates, because a lot of the same things happen each time. So when it came to cross-examination, look, I get that you know, and that's why I say in the show, when they are that gung-ho against you and they don't give a damn about evidence, and all they're doing is a proof by assertion fallacy by repeating the claim, that the only chance we have is to have them declare the witness incompetent, which is exactly what happened in another court proceeding yesterday that we'll discuss here in Arizona. So let's discuss the cross-examination when we get back, all right?
Let me
wait, we're up against the break. Hold on, Rick. We're up against the break, so just hold on
until the next one.
Okay. We'll be back here on the No State Project with Rick in Illinois in just a moment, talking about how important cross-examination usually is. So don't go away. Yes, we'll go back to the No State Project here every Saturday for 3 hours of anarchy radio right here on LRN.FM. And we have an hour commercial-free on the Wednesday broadcast. So actually it comes out to about half of the content that we actually get on this broadcast. So and we don't have without the commercials, we don't have a break in the conversation. So I want to bring back. We're talking with Rick in Illinois, who had this show is just another example where so beware of pseudo-anarchists, pseudo-anarcho-capitalists or voluntarists who are really just Republicans who hate government, or at least the current government. I've been accused, Rick, of cherry picking, where I only discuss success stories here on the show. And
well, clearly that is not the case, is it?
It's not. The thing is, the criticism that is usually leveled at my show is always a straw man. It's always a lie. So I was really surprised that I was described as a charlatan. I posted evidence in a video recently. You can get at markstevens.net or my YouTube channel, No State Project. I have documentary proof of the motion in limine being granted. It's right there in plain English. And then I have documentary proof of the police officer withdrawing his complaint, and he did show up in court. It's not a matter he didn't show, so they don't have that excuse. I have actual proof, and I've got these people on Reddit going to the mods to ban me because I'm spamming and that I'm a charlatan. Like, I have the proof. What is... So, the thing is, I would much rather talk to someone who is an admitted statist and discuss anarchy principles and court procedure with them than with these pseudo, ANCAPs or voluntarists on Reddit. It just seems to be, it's such a cesspool.
One more thing before I hang up with you. I made a reasonable attempt at getting a recording of this with my cell phone. After being instructed to turn it off, I turned it on, of course, and hit the voice recorder. So there's about a 45-minute audio. It just does not go 45 minutes. It's about 5 minutes of a few people before me, then me getting stopped, and then there was a break because the judge had to leave the room to go look at some video, and then it comes back and everybody gets trickled out, and it's me. It's reasonable. You can hear it if you plug your earphones in, headphones in, and you can see it. I could shoot you the recording if you're interested in reviewing it.
Yeah, I would.
Spend 45 minutes on
it. I would. And before I let you go, send it to me on Skype. Is that we were going to discuss the importance of the cross-examination. So when it came to cross-examination with the police officer, how did that go? Can you just give us some of the main details?
I did say, do you have? I wish I had my notes here. What the question, the way I asked it, but to some degree, do you have any evidence that this applies to me? And then the prosecutor says, objection, calls for a legal conclusion.
Was that sustained?
Yes, of course.
Now, did you say anything in opposition to this? Did you?
No, at that point I got completely flustered, and I just like.
Rick.
Yeah, Mark, I'm not a pro. I've never done this. I don't know.
You don't have to be a pro. You don't have to be a pro, but you got to consider why the police officer. Well, first of all, the judge said, when you ask that question, are his claims irrefutable? He said, well, ask him. The fact is, we don't have to be a pro at this. We just have to use the basic principles, just the Socratic method. We just have to ask them questions on this. So didn't the police officer make legal determinations against me by claiming these laws apply to me? Are you now saying he's not qualified to do that? No, haven't I said? And I said that's exactly what happened with Scar yesterday in Tucson, and it happens all the time. So I don't know if you've got to go or see this.
No, I'm good.
This is really, really important. So what you have here, and this is why I think it's worth pursuing at least one appeal here. You have the judge and the prosecutor impeaching the police officer as a witness against you for things like legal conclusions. Having probable cause is a legal conclusion. That is not a statement of fact. It's a legal conclusion that includes facts. Yes, it's not a pure issue of law. And if he's not qualified to answer questions that on legal conclusions he made, then his legal conclusions have to be stricken, including the conclusions that he had probable cause and that you violated the law. I'll say this from the rooftops 1,000 times, saying that the laws apply to you and he has jurisdiction and probable cause to stop you and giving you a ticket for violating the law, those are all legal conclusions. And if he's not qualified according to the judge, then they have to be stricken. He's not a qualified, competent witness. And so what you have here is another example where you took some basic questions and got the prosecutor to impeach his own witness. And then you had the judge not only say he was not qualified to give legal conclusions, he was not qualified to say you broke the law, he still took the testimony anyway. And
that's where I after we kind of went out of that, we sat down in the car afterwards, and we kind of realized that was the big mistake there, not pursuing what you just said. So we did kind of come to that conclusion, but just a dollar a day short and a dollar short.
The thing is, you can still clean this up. you can file to vacate for a denial of effective cross-examination, and you put in there, and I can help with that. You could put in there, this is a direct quote, a denial of cross-examination without waiver would be a constitutional error of the first magnitude, and no amount of showing of want of prejudice would cure it. And just lay out, you have a textbook denial of effective cross-examination. They would not allow you to ask questions on the evidence his legal conclusions were based on that he was not even qualified to make. And that's a denial of cross. And so you stand a substantial chance of getting this reversed on appeal, that they should do the right thing now.
That's encouraging.
Well, I would do.
I will definitely pursue that then.
What I would do, and I'm going to have to do a template for this, and every time we send a motion, someone purchases a motion, this has to be a part of it. There has to be a claim against the city or the town or the county's insurance for what these judges, cops, and prosecutors are doing. It doesn't matter that they're only costing you, let's say, $500 or $1,000 on top of the fine because, you're taking your time and trying to do this. And if they're forcing you into that, it still, that's a valid insurance claim. They've damaged you. They've hurt you. They have and so complaints to the Judicial Conduct Commission and the bar don't do anything. But they should. Every time they file against us, we should be getting ready with a claim against their insurance.
Okay.
So get with me off air, and I can help you with the motion to vacate.
Okay. I still have the motion in limine. I didn't do any filling in the appropriate parts. Do I need that still?
No, that had to be done.
No, we're done with that.
The
okay,
in limine.
So we're going to do a motion to vacate.
Yeah, the motion to vacate based on a lack of evidence proving jurisdiction. It was unfair, and one part of the reasons why it was unfair was because you were denied effective cross-examination. If you're going to take the police officer's testimony that the laws apply to you and that you violated them, then you have to allow questions regarding the facts those claims are based on. And just then turn around and say that the officer is not competent to give legal conclusions, and then you turn around and accept them as the God Almighty gospel. Anyway, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Not fair at all.
Should I send you an email then, or how would you like me to contact you?
Send me an email.
Okay.
Yeah, send me an email. Get me on Skype at FrankRizzo3, all right?
I'll do it. Thank you again for all you do, and again, it was worth it. It was a good time.
I'm glad to hear
I'll
that.
get you the audio if I can.
Okay, appreciate it. All right, we're up against the break. My name is Marc Stevens. You're listening to the No State Project here on LRN.FM. We'll be back with your calls and more in just a few moments, so don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. I'm your host, Marc Stevens, author of Government Indicted. Website, of course, markstevens.net. And real quick, this is the level of... I don't know. To the video about the Canadian prosecutor who couldn't prove the laws applied, this is the level of... And these are the people that are downvoting me into oblivion about... The proof will likely be someone arresting whomever they were talking about for whatever reason. That's proof? Because you arrest somebody? That's proof the laws apply? A written instrument nobody bothered to sign? So written instruments just apply and create obligations because you arrest somebody? I mean, this is supposed to be about anarcho-capitalism, voluntarists who don't see government as legitimate, that it's just that taxation is theft, and yet they write something like that. It's like... Obviously, the reason why they're claiming to be an ANCAP is not because of logic. It is not because of any kind of core principle. So I write, well, that doesn't prove the claim is true. And he comes back, the law being applied to a person is, in fact, evidence that the law does apply to them. Whether this is just or unjust is immaterial. The law being applied to a person is, in fact, evidence that the law does apply to them. Again, this is so lacking I'm almost speechless at how freaking stupid that this response is. Just because you apply a written instrument to somebody and force it on them doesn't mean it actually does apply to them. It is staggering to me, the level of irrational responses that we get on, again, Reddit, it is a cesspool. I mean, there is. You would think I was doing this in a Republican, subreddit. Just disgraceful. Holy crap. Anyway, let me get back to the calls, which is why we're here. Not to. I tell you, oh my gosh, it's just getting as bad as YouTube. But then again, my YouTube comments are usually from subs, and so it's not nearly the cancer-producing crap that you get on Reddit. But we have a new caller. I believe this is New York. But we've got area code 315. You're live on the No State Project. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Oh, hey, Mark. How you doing? This is Eric, not Rick. Just add the E. From New York. You got it. 315.
All right. What do you got for us today?
Well, let's see. Kind of a question about a story I recently had with a failure to stop ticket. And also sort of to play devil's advocate. Let's see, what should I start with first? Devil's advocate or the story?
Start with devil's advocate. Give the devil his due.
All right. Well, I'd like to invite you to maybe this isn't the platform you'd like to do it, but maybe we could have I have a website called Sans Memetics, like memetics means .com. It's I don't know. I guess libertarian, anarchist. I based sort of news and articles. So a little background. I just got back from. I'm getting an echo.
No, I'm not hearing it.
Okay, you're hearing me fine then?
You're coming through loud and clear.
Okay, so I just got back from being an expat, 12 years in self-exile in Asia, mostly Shanghai. And don't hate me, but I did a lot of work over there as legal counsel, basically just mergers and acquisitions, contract law. So I'm a big fan of, no contract, then F off, that sort of approach to things. I'm not quite sure what your perception of contract law is, or essentially, I'm a big fan of your work, okay?
Okay.
I agree with almost everything you say, except I still believe in business and we need some sort of system for contract laws. My worry about a lot of your work is it's kind of like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak.
How so?
Well, I still, I hate to use the word belief because I'm not a big fan of belief systems. I'm still of the position where we need some sort of third-party arbitration system. I mean, if you want to call it government, you can rename it. I don't know. What mechanism? Let's imagine tomorrow that everybody understood the No State Project. Like they magically woke up and said, "Screw this crap." What system would you propose we have in place to arbitrate disputes, contract law?
Well, you have businesses like that now, arbitration and mediation businesses, and their reputation. They're going to have to maintain a reputation in order to be able to survive in the market. And so, if they are giving decisions and resolving disputes, which they can't use force, obviously, to back it up. It has to be done in a way that's seen as that is fair and equitable. If they're not doing that, then there's no incentive for anyone to use them as a service. So the market's going to dictate that, like with any service, they have to provide a fair service, or no one's going to. I mean, look what happens when you have now because of the internet, when you have these. Like what I talked about the last time, when the internet got a hold of that video of the nurse being arrested the way she was, that was a market correction in action, and there are other examples, of course. So I obviously there's going to be bad decisions, and there's no decision. You don't have to abide by the decision. I think ultimately with a lot of business type contracts, it's going to wind up to where your insurance is going to have to cover a loss if it can't be resolved.
Okay, so you're saying privatized, free market sort of third parties.
Well, take advantage of what you already have now, in the fact that you also have to throw in that business litigation is extremely expensive, and it is, and that's even governments have recognized just how bad civil business litigation is, for example, and how costly it is. And so they recommend, that's why, like in California, you have to have arbitration before you can go to court on on something like a medical malpractice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I agree a lot with that, but let's, like the scenario, me, I'm the foreigner living in China, I'm the foreign investor. Basically any dispute against a Chinese national, I'm pretty much 80% guilty. I'm the bad foreigner. This is basically what life is like living in China. Don't get me wrong, there's good sides too. But if you're a foreigner, expat, you invest some money, create a business with some Chinese partners, and what was that term? Things go pear-shaped.
they go pear-shaped, yeah.
I've heard that. Yeah, it's basically shit hits the fan, or things go south, or
yeah.
That's my the S. So yeah. Anywho, I mean, how could some third party? I don't care if they're based in New York or if they're based in Paris or whatever. So I'm a foreigner, U.S. passport. I'm dealing with Chinese nationals over a messed up contract. How, other than a big government, could even handle that? I know.
Well, you have to break it down. There's two parts to this. There's at least two moving parts here. You got to talk about first. There has to be a fact-finding kind of process where you have the opportunity for both sides to make a case, and then depending on whatever the decision is based on that evidence and the arguments presented, what do you do if neither party wants to, they don't want to comply with with their decision? That's why I think it's best, something like insurance, which you should be carrying anyway, may have to cover a loss from a situation where there's a stalemate. So there may not be a decision that can be reached between the two parties, regardless of how fair and equitable the process was. It's still better than going to a government, because most of the time people do settle because it's just far too expensive. We're up against the top of the hour break, so just hold on. We'll be back on the No State Project in just a moment. Don't go away. Yes, welcome back. Second of 3 hours of Anarchy Radio right here on LRN.FM, the Liberty Radio Network. Anarchy meaning an absence of rulers, no ruling class, not an absence of rules. We believe in rules, and we believe in basic principles of right and wrong, that aggression is wrong. Do no harm, and we believe that this should apply to everyone. If it's immoral for me to force a stranger to give me money, it's immoral for anyone to do that, even if they get together and call themselves a government. And what we really seek is not only that, but really just to, when it comes to government, just to change the manner in which they are supported. That instead of being forced to pay them, let them provide services. We're going to need them. We're just not going to use a prison system to collect the money. But we're talking with Eric in New York, so we're talking about one of the things, the playing devil's advocate, about what do we do in a stateless society or governmentless society to resolve business disputes. And I think we covered, I'd like to spend more time on it, but I got a lot of calls to get to still. So I think, at least in a general sense, we've covered that. Did you have any questions regarding that?
No. I can move on to like I said, I gave the invitation. We could do this on my platform as well. I don't debate. I would like to a conversation. Just to give you the gist, I mean, I'm a big fan of civics, legal contracts, contract law. I think I have no problem with that. And one problem I have with some anarchists is, not saying you, I've never got it, but there is one guy. Do you mind me naming somebody, or do you not like to poo-poo on other people's work?
Well, I may not poo-poo on the work, but if you want to call and you've got questions about someone, if you limit it to just their arguments or their positions, I think it's fine. We not engage in a personal.
Well, okay. For example, Larkin Rose.
Okay.
Are you familiar with Larkin?
Yeah, I've met Larkin a number of times. I've had him on the show. Yeah.
Okay.
Very
I think I haven't got the feeling from you or other people you work with, but the sort of anarchist Larkin is, I think he's almost a religious zealot in a way like atheists are in many ways. I think he neglects the point that human beings, the vast majority, okay, the vast majority of human beings seem to need to be told what to do. And I don't know what it is. Is it karma? Is it, you're an old soul, or is it genetic? Or I have no idea. It's like the $1 million question. So I do recognize the fact that the vast majority of human beings on this planet, not just, in the West, and they seem to desperately cling to this false religion of authority.
Well, yeah, I'm inclined to believe that most people want to be told what to do. They want to be comfortable. I think bottom line, and I don't think this is a secret, there have been studies or polls about this. Most people are more concerned with being comfortable than being free and not having it. So I think, I would say that, I have to agree with that. I think most people want to be comfortable, and that's why they can.
Do you see that? I'm sorry.
I was saying that was why someone like Wesley Serra can crap all over my work and falsely claim that he's free, that nobody dictates to him how he does his job, and yet he's a lawyer. And, so he's free to do whatever he wants as long as he has his license, I think most people, they would rather have a sense of comfort and safety than to actually be responsible and be free.
Safety, yes, safety. Oh, I'm safe. I know that's just the obsession, the religious. It makes us safe. We're safe. We're safe with our king in Thailand. We're safe with our People's Republic of China. We're safe with this, Republican democratic system here. I don't see that changing amongst our species. Like, I supported Trump as an anarchist. People were like, "Oh, how can you do that?" I said, "Well, I'm not going to vote, but I'm not naive, and I know that most people believe in this religion of voting." So shoot me. I saw Trump as a way better option than Clinton, and I said, "Yeah, you should vote for him." I'm not voting.
Come on, but truth be known, I think that it doesn't matter because, look, we always know who's going to win every election. It's the government. The people call this syndicate or this cartel, this criminal cartel that is controlling everything. They win every time. So, getting into and even discussing the differences between Tyrant A and Tyrant B, I don't buy this. Oh my gosh! Hillary is so dangerous. She is so dangerous. I have to abandon my principles. But I wanted to. I think Larkin. And I've only spoken to him for a few hours over the last I don't know how many years. So it's not like we're best friends, but I know him. I don't think he discounts the fact that most people just want to be comfortable and are not interested in freedom. I think he realizes that this is coming through education and and it's through an education process. Is it going to? We don't have to change everybody's mind. We don't need that. We just have to have a certain strong minority that will not comply anymore and see through the BS and will continue to discredit these people and post things like that. One day, guys, one day,
Okay, so now
it's going to be here.
That's my second question. That's my second sort of how it. Okay, so I think we all agree that we're not anywhere close to the majority of human beings on this planet being even remotely close to understanding something like I say, you say, Larkin Rose says, Marc Passio says, whatever. It's a false religion. Authority. That's to me, that's the biggest fundamental overarching problem with the planet.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
This religion, and it is religious. It's a religion.
Well, I think just to explain it, I look at it religiously as a religious kind of thing, and no, religion does not necessarily imply gods because there's Buddhism, but it is the idea that these things exist and they don't need evidence to prove it, and that if you disbelieve, that they will punish you severely, and that somehow that they are not just regular human beings like you and I. They have a moral right to violate the basic principles of morality. That, I think, is where it takes on a religious connotation, that they're beyond, and somehow the basic principles of right and wrong don't apply to them. And it is the belief,
beyond reproach.
Yeah, and is the belief, the automatic belief that even when you get someone who claims to be a anarcho-capitalist, who sees, like I mentioned before, when even they are so conditioned to believe that just because they say the laws apply, that they automatically do, right? That is where I see the religious zealotry. That is where I see the shutdown of critical thought. Well, taxation is theft, and it doesn't go beyond that. The whole damn group of them. If taxation is theft, then it is a criminal organization, and none of their rules apply.
I agree. I just, which nation is going to take the first step to go along this path? Because I can tell you nationalism is rising in China, and if
well, we're up against a break, and so before we get to any more calls, I want to finish this. Which is first? So we'll discuss that when we get back. My name is Marc Stevens, talking with Eric in New York. Which is going to be the first nation? I don't think it'll be a nation, but we'll discuss that when we get back here on the No State Project. So don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. I'm Marc Stevens. And we're talking with Eric in New York. Welcome back, Eric. And the question being, what would be the first nation, so-called, that would eliminate government? I think that's what you were asking.
In the sense of we have it today.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't necessarily look at it as far as a nation doing that. I don't think that that's going to happen. I'd like to hold out as much as I'm very biased against the Free State Project for just a few of the people. I know just a fraction of the people who just became politicians and then, went back on their word, passionate. That's why it just makes those commercials make my skin crawl here. That I have, that's why I can't listen to the breaks. I have to always take the headphones off. Because they had the opportunity to do something to help somebody and to talk about the free market and to revere the free market. And here you got a guy who's actually doing as much as he can, who put his entire life on the line, his whole business, and they just sat back and watched it. But I still would like to hold out that there is a chance that the Free State Project, something like that, something will come of that they will actually get people in there. But then the thing that gets me, though, Eric, is that we've already seen where the people getting in do nothing to advance the cause of freedom. Nothing. They just talk. Hell, even smoking pot has already been. It was something that was put in motion over a decade ago. It's not the free staters that are responsible for that, And so you see that the politicians that have gotten in, when they have the real opportunity to help one of their own, do nothing. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of ambivalent about. I don't know. I'd like to think that they are actually going to follow through, but I don't. I don't know. I'm too biased against them right now.
I understand, and it's like, but you're up against so many other things. I mean, you've got these people who are into RBE. You know what RBE is? The Zeitgeist Movement and the Venus Project, and pretty much kind of communism rebranded into a cool technocracy. No, it's not transhumanist. No. It's a resource-based economy.
Well, is it based on a violent rebellion where the workers violently take and seize the means of production?
No, it's very. I guess maybe you're not familiar with the Zeitgeist Movement, Peter Joseph and Jacques Fresco and the whole Venus Project.
If they're not advocating the violent overthrow of the means of production, then they're probably not communists.
No, they're not violent. They're just, let's get an AI to basically assess all the resources on the planet, and we're all going to live in little cities with flying cars, and we're going to get rid of money, and we're going to live in a resource-based economy, which I think if you really look at economics, it's always been and always has been about resources. Money is just a little control mechanism. I mean, people who have the power, they don't care about money. They care about controlling resources, human resources, means of production. They don't give a shit. You think they give a shit about the Chinese RMB or the U.S. dollar or Bitcoin? They don't care.
No, it's all the money is a means of control. It's a means of maintaining control. So,
you have a lot of people that think, we got to get rid of money. That's going to fix everything.
Yeah, well, that's a pipe dream. I don't see that. But I would like to see. See, I like the idea of the Free State Project. I just don't like some of the people that are in it and the ones that seem to have the loudest voice, unfortunately. They kicked Ian Freeman out, so enough said. End of discussion for me. If you kicked Ian out, I got a serious problem with the management then. Because Ian has always been a stand-up guy, puts his principles where this guy's gone to jail. So if you're going to kick someone like that out, I'm going to have an issue. And then for what they did to Bill, of course, it was far worse. But I'd like to see something where a small town like Keene could be taken over as far as the people who are running it, so that they could, start to dismantle. Slowly, at least, start dismantling things and make it more business friendly, make it friendly for people to move in, and have that spread to other towns. But they have to be able to take care of all the necessary services and do that uninterrupted, and to where they can actually, and have that be a model for other little towns and cities in New Hampshire and do it that way. I'd like to see that, but
I don't. See, this is where I digress from I guess, Larkin Rose, and maybe you to a point. I'm not quite certain on that, because personally, and I could be wrong, but I don't see the judges and the police and government as the biggest problem. I just look at, go to court for not paying your taxes. You know who's going to screw you over more for not paying their taxes? Those people on that jury, because they're going to look at you like, how dare this prick not, to pay his fair share. They're going to screw you over more than the judges, in my view. I could be. I mean, that's my view. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on it.
There's some. Well, I have personal knowledge of some evidence of that. Where, well, you brought up Larkin Rose. The judge actually said, "I believe you were sincere in your belief." That was the whole case right there, and they still convicted him. Even the judge, as biased as he was, could see that Larkin. You don't have to agree with Larkin on anything. But here, just strictly from a beyond a reasonable doubt legal standpoint, the man made his case. The judge agreed, and they still convicted him. And then what happened to James in Alaska was disgraceful. So, but you're talking about having enough people that you could get, let's say, an actual anarchist or a voluntarist who's the city manager and the mayor and the city council, and can actually start dismantling some of the things that are being done. One, a city manager and a mayor and a city council can order the police until we phase you guys out completely. You are absolutely not going to violate the non-aggression principle. So I wish I had more time, but I got a line of calls. So
listen. Let's do this on a like I said. Let's do this on a thing. I want to give you a quick experience of this weird situation I had in. I don't even think you could call it traffic court because it's never been like a court I've ever experienced. Should we do that really quick?
Yeah, we got a couple minutes before the next break.
Yeah. Let's you know what? Get in touch with me through sans, like without sans serif, like the font, sansmimetics.com. Okay, just get in touch with me on there. I'll send you an email.
Send me an email. Yeah.
So I had a failure to stop, which I was kind of torn because I actually did stop. The cop had a.
Eric, I'm sorry. We're actually up against a break, so we'll have to do this on another segment. I got to let you go.
Okay, cheers.
I appreciate the call. A lot of good stuff. My name is Marc Stevens. You're listening to the No State Project here on LRN.FM. I believe we have a good caller next that we'll bring up. He's been on the show before, a former police officer. So don't go away. We'll be right back. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. I'm Marc Stevens, and I walked out of the room and didn't connect my next caller. So you're gonna have to excuse me. I will put that on mute, and while I'm waiting for Mike to pick up, I will know that the number here is 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020. And Skype, of course, if I'm on the ball, it's Frank Rizzo 3. But I think we've got him. Do we have Mike? Mike from Long Island. I can barely... Wow. There's almost no audio at all. Shout it out.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I see what I did. Yeah, I am going to have to bring you up on a break. I'm really sorry. I can't do this on this computer. I'm really sorry. I have to cut this out of the podcast. I will call you. I'm really sorry. I was supposed to bring you up on a break, and I have to do that on the other computer. I can't do it on this computer because everyone listening is not going to hear you.
Understand.
Okay, so I'll call you back on. I'll bring you up on another segment. I'm sorry.
No.
Boy, I just wasn't paying attention. I do apologize for that. Well, what would the No State Project be without some tech issues? And that obviously was on my side. So, Mike, I appreciate your patience. So the only thing I can do is we have another new caller. We have area code 901. You're live on the No State Project. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Out of the batter's box.
Yeah.
Juice out of the batter's box. Juice out of the batter's box.
Is it? What the heck? Hello? That is really odd. Yeah, we're going to mute them back up. And we're going to go to someone who's been on the show before. We have Al in California. Al, welcome back to the big show.
Hi, Mark. Can you hear me?
I can. Sounds like you're on a cell phone.
Yeah, cell phone.
All right, what do you got?
The ongoing... Go ahead.
The ongoing saga. Okay, you got an update for us?
Yeah, so I went to from the cosmetology board violations, went to the informal hearing, and I think I updated you already on that, but that's just they don't want to hear anything about jurisdiction. It's see the Attorney General, and if you don't like it, you can leave. So I appealed they just upheld the citation, so I appealed their decision. And now it's going to go to an administrative law judge hearing. However, when I was looking up information about administrative law judge hearings, they're just a rubber stamp for the agency.
Well,
And it basically says
well, technically, in practical terms, maybe that's the way it works. But in technically, they are supposed to be adversarial proceedings with discovery and subpoenas.
okay, but when you read about the instructions about what the hearing how it will proceed, it basically just focuses all on the citations. Nothing allowed, or even it doesn't say it's not allowed, but it doesn't even mention anything about constitutional issues. Or, in other words, the only way you can appeal this result is if it's a constitutional issue like jurisdiction.
Well, yeah, but you're raising a jurisdiction issue as a matter of fact because there's no facts to support the police officer or the agent's determination. You're not making it. Your constitutional claims will be due process violations.
Right.
The fact that they're going to allow the agency to argue without evidence, that is a due process violation because it's not fair. If they don't allow you to cross-examine the agent effectively, then that is a due process violation. So those will be your constitutional arguments that it violates due process, but not the issue of whether the agent has evidence to support their claim of jurisdiction.
Okay. What was interesting about this is, after I requested the hearing with the administrative law judge, I sent in, a request for admissions to the board and some interrogatory questions. And even though this whole thing is still up in the air, unsettled, an inspector came for another inspection, even while this is under, appeal. So I thought, and the inspector mentioned the fact that we were appealing this. So it's gotten all the way down to the local inspector, I guess, controversy I'm creating for them. And it seemed like to me it was a punitive measure for them to send another inspector out when the previous inspections are still under appeal.
I would agree with you. You're making more trouble for them, and they're going to have to get one of their lawyers to defend against this. Why bother when most people just throw their hands up and pay? It's too bad you don't have the option of filing an insurance claim against them, because they don't carry insurance anymore.
I'm sorry, didn't get that. File an insurance claim.
Yeah, I've recommended for a while, and I was talking about it earlier. So when these cops, prosecutors, and judges pull this crap on us, even though we can't get any resolution by filing a complaint against them with the Judicial Conduct Commission or the bar, you can file a claim for damages against the city's insurance policy for them, because they do carry insurance for damages that they may cause to somebody. You don't have that option.
This is a state board.
Yeah, you don't have that option in California. California doesn't self-insure anymore, and they haven't had bonds in decades. So here, do you have an actual hearing date for this administrative law proceeding?
No, I do not. They haven't set that yet because, basically about 2 weeks ago is when they received my appeal to
Okay.
the administrative law judge hearing.
Well, if you look in the rules, I think it's Government Code 15,000. I might not be correct in that, but you can contact me off air, and if I'm not right, and I can look that up. I have some documents where we brought to them. They are supposed to be evidentiary in nature with, like I mentioned, with discovery. And even if you wanted to subpoena somebody as a witness, they would do that. So I would start the discovery process. Hell,
Oh yeah, I mean, I did send in another request for discovery, along with the interrogatories and the request for admissions.
Okay, good. And I would imagine that they're probably not going to be responsive to you. And then I would not want to have them compelled to do that. I think that as a sanction for not complying with the discovery rule should be that their complaint should be tossed out.
Right. Now, how would you approach the age-old question, them saying that, well, you, your wife signed the application that gives us, so you agreed to all this, because you're not signing the application, even though you can't do business unless you sign the application.
Well, and that's what we'll address when we get back, because we're up against the break. So just hold tight. I got that noted. Now, my name's Marc Stevens. You're listening to the No State Project. We'll be back with Al in California in just a moment. Don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. You want to join me? It's 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. The passcode is 2020. And we're talking today with Al in California, who's having an issue with the cosmopology, the board for cutting hair and makeup and whatnot in California. And he's got an administrative hearing coming up before an administrative law judge. And what we were talking about before is that they like to make the claim that you agreed by getting the application, right?
That's correct.
And what are they claiming that you agreed to?
No, I'm just anticipating that could be a claim that they have to enforce their codes and regulations.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. They pull that crap all the time with the driver's license, and that's the evidence of jurisdiction. The IRS will pull the same crap and say, but you filed the return. That's the only evidence we need to prove jurisdiction. So all I do is I counter that with, let me see if I understand you correctly. If I didn't get this application, which was compulsory, you would have no jurisdiction to stop me if I was cutting hair and whatnot and running my business without the permit? Oh, so no, and they would correct you. Oh, no, we would still have jurisdiction. So the application that you forced us to get is absolutely irrelevant to whether you have jurisdiction or not. And that is usually all we have to do to eliminate that as a claim of jurisdiction.
Okay.
It's just a matter of asking questions to bring out that contradiction, And I had someone in San Diego years ago who confronted them on that. They said, look, you signed the return. That's the evidence that we have for jurisdiction. And he said, well, but I didn't file for the last 5 years, so you have no jurisdiction to investigate me for those years? Really? Could I get that? Could you give us that in writing in front of a notary? Of course, they corrected him, which is the point of the question. No. The return is not necessary for jurisdiction. Oh, okay. So your evidence again against me would be because we've eliminated now, by your own admission, we've eliminated the return. And so it's the same thing here with if they pull that crap with the application. Just do the same thing. So without the application, you have no jurisdiction? I could do this business without the application? All right. It's good to know.
Hey, Mark, have you ever heard of a notice of liability?
Notice of liability? Well, it's kind of...
Yeah, and that's when a government official has taken an oath to defend the Constitution and uphold it, and they don't, then they're violating their oath, and you can issue, or you can, give them a notice of liability that they've lost their immunity from any recourse because they're violating their own oath.
Yeah, I was Yeah, I don't see any merit to that. Who enforces it? It's just like when the Patriot types were doing this thing in the late 90s and whatnot about collateral estoppel, that if they don't respond within a certain time, then they're, collateral estoppel. And my question was, you do realize it's a court, that's for court. I mean, have you ever had a court enforce the estoppel? Well, no. Well, then it's useless. It's useless as a tactic.
Yeah.
So here I would say the same thing. Unless the only way to hold them accountable is to file a claim for damages. But in California, you don't do that with insurance because they don't have that. You have to go through. I don't remember the agencies that you have to go through, but that may be worth pursuing. But it's not going to be, it's not going to be like an insurance claim that you can then bring into small claims court. They don't have that process available anymore. So I would not do that. What I would do is get my, I would keep track of how long the discovery has been and get ready with a, in fact, you can call their attorney and find out if they have any answers to your discovery request. Do you know the name of the...
Well, let alone the, let alone the, request for admissions and interrogatories I send in.
Yeah, I would call them. I always recommend calling and asking them, do you have any evidence to show that just because I'm in California, your laws apply to me? And do you have a witness with personal knowledge of that?
That was in the interrogatory.
Okay, well, the interrogatory is really, okay. You want to know if the prosecutor, the guy who's actually, defending this, if they have any evidence and if they have a qualified witness. Now, the interrogatory is supposed to be given to a qualified witness, so I like to just get in there and ask him, so I have an idea of where they stand and if they're going to respond at all, so that I could be ready with my motion to dismiss their complaint based on prosecutorial misconduct that they're arguing without evidence, and that they can't make a prima facie case. It shouldn't even go to a hearing because they can't make a prima facie case.
Right. Well, I mean, here's my expectation is of the hearing is I'm going to bring up the challenges that you use, and they're going to rubber stamp the guilty of all these citations, find them out and upheld, and so I'm going to have to, in the hearing, basically carefully herd them into violations of due process.
Well, they have to have, look, like I mentioned before, they're like doing an adversary proceeding. They're supposed to have witnesses that you can cross-examine. So it may be like what happened with Scar and Rick in Illinois. It comes down to them not allowing you to effectively cross-examine your witness, that you can then take that up on appeal, which would suck, but that may be your only remedy. So they're still going to have to legally give you an opportunity to cross-examine the witness against you. If the witness is incompetent and they accept the testimony anyway, well, there you go. You've made, if you can't prevail under those circumstances, you really don't have a chance. Because if you can't prevail under those circumstances, Al, they're so biased against you, a fair trial was impossible from the start.
Yeah, well, so far that's the case.
Well, you're not. Well, the difference is now you're actually in a formal adversarial proceeding where these things are supposed to be done, and instead of you arguing whether there's evidence the laws apply to you, now you've got a situation where the witness against you has been declared incompetent and they're still accepting his testimony. That's a radically different error and due process violation to be taking up, because it doesn't necessarily prejudice you in the same way the other one does. It's a great challenge, yes, but they're so biased against us because of that, and so this kind of takes the bias away. Look, the judge said the cop wasn't, or the agent was incompetent, and the judge took the testimony anyway. Whether you're an anarchist or a Maoist, it doesn't matter. That's not fair.
Well, if this is a true adversarial hearing, they haven't produced anybody that's injured, harmed, or violated their rights either.
That's true. They're going based on the legal injury is the violation of the code.
Yeah,
And
that is.
right. And so how do we attack that? Well, where's your proof it applies in the first place? Now, they can laugh like the prosecutor did with Rick, sure. But laughing at somebody doesn't mean you're meeting your burden of proof. You can still laugh and meet your burden of proof. I mean, like when someone says to me that there are citizens in states, and I can go, really? So forcing people to, I can laugh but still present the evidence that it's not true. Here, they're not going to be able to do that. They're just laughing in an attempt to gaslight you and make you feel stupid, which, they accomplish a lot of times. So, yeah, give them a call. If you want, contact me off air, and maybe that's something I can assist you with.
Okay.
But that's the way
Thanks for answering my questions. I'll continue to listen. You can get some other callers in.
Okay, appreciate that. And do some role playing on the Skype, the No State Project Skype chat. Okay.
I will. I have.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks, Al. Wow, we timed that right. We just as the bumper came up. So I'm actually not going to blow this particular bumper, which is nice. But we're going to be talking with Mike from Long Island next. I will properly bring him up on the show. So don't go away. We'll be back with a third of 3 hours of Anarchy Radio right here on LRN.FM. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project right here on LRN.FM, of course, the Liberty Radio Network. We will be live again on Wednesday, so whatever we don't get to today, we'll get to on Wednesday. So remember, that's on my YouTube channel, No State Project, because I still need to talk a bit about what happened to Scar. I was hoping Scar would call. But we've got a treat. He's been on the show before. Former police officer, I believe who's from Long Island. So I'm going to be my regular self here and say, hey, how you doing, Mike? Welcome back.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. And you are a former cop, right?
Yeah, I'm a retired NYPD.
NYPD, you were in the belly of the beast.
Yeah, we can say that. And I was listening to you in my car on Wednesday. And I know you were going off on cops, man. I was like,
oh, that was nothing, Mike. I know. That was nothing. Jeez.
I understand. I mean, I've been retired now for be 4 years this year, and my life has changed, and I've really transformed, and through tragedy, pretty much. You know what I mean? And the tyrants in the legal system, twisting my, my nuts. But and that video in Utah in the ER, I mean, I was just as angry as everybody else. I just couldn't understand how it got like that, and I was, and then to hear you, contempt a cop, and I was like, whoa, come on, give us a break a little bit, because I had the feeling of just wanting to defend police officers, yet I see a lot of this stupid shit going on, and I just don't understand it, and I didn't come up like that, I did that my best to apply common sense, and there's not a lot of that anymore. And the cops today are like robots. It's all about separating people from their money. I understand that, but I also wanted to commend you, Mark, because you and a lot of other people on the internet, talking about legal issues and stuff like that have changed my life.
Well, I appreciate that. But you were angry about something that I was saying. Because you left a comment. And that's why, I wasn't sure if it was you or not. So I did leave the comment.
Yeah, it was me. I was having a physical response because, this part of me that still has this cop stuff in me and wants to defend, certain things. I wasn't looking to defend that video. What that detective did to that nurse, I would, I was pissed off at the other uniforms in that ER. Why didn't they punch him in the face? Because or drag him into a room and lock him in it, because he was out of line, totally out of line. And it wouldn't have happened. I'll tell you, it wouldn't have happened in Bellevue. No.
But this is, in my experience, and I probably have more experience than the average person because as an activist, I've just encountered police a lot more than you typically will. And then seeing videos and so many reports, and yeah, I followed Bad Cop No Donut on Reddit, which is actually a pretty good subreddit, by the way. That's kind of the attitude that cops are taught to take. I know this. I haven't been to the academy, but I've spoken to enough cops, and maybe you can confirm this. That cops are taught to take control and be in control of the situation, and they're given a gun and told to go out and dominate other people.
Yeah, well, I think when you start saying dominate, I don't really recall being taught that, but I mean, it was always on the protect and serve side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but most of what cops do, the average cop, is not protecting. It's driving around giving tickets and
No, hey, listen, you're not going to get. You mean I understand that. I mean, I worked in Midtown Manhattan. There were at least 8 guys dedicated just to do that. Now, I was one of the guys in a squad out on patrol, answering the radio. My sergeant had to come to me at the end of the month to me and my partner and say, "Listen, where's my numbers? You got my numbers?" And I was always one of those guys that always brought in the minimum because I didn't want to cut my own throat and be sent to to the other end of Staten Island and
or Bed-Stuy.
Oh, Bed-Stuy. Well, that's where I learned to be a cop. I wouldn't have minded that. But they leave you alone there, believe it or not. They leave you alone, the bosses don't come out to the footposts out there.
You were in Bed-Stuy?
As a rookie, yes.
Oh, good Lord. Did you know a guy named McMahon?
There's a lot of guys named McMahon.
Yeah, that just as I was saying it, but Kevin McMahon.
Kevin McMahon, I can't say off the top of my head. No.
Okay. Yeah, he was. I was good friends with his brother, and I knew him for a bit, and so he was. He lived in He lived in Center Reach, and he was just nice. He was little guy, and he was one of the more decorated guys there. I almost said soldier, but he was one of these kind of guy. He was a smaller guy, small Irish guy, but boy, he could rip someone's head off in a few seconds. But it's not no one to mess with. And I was like, how does a guy this size make it as a cop in Bed-Stuy? I don't see. But yeah, rough. For those who don't know, Bed-Stuy is one of the worst sections of Brooklyn.
Yeah. There was back in the 90s, late 80s, in the 80s. There was every day there's shots fired.
Oh.
You didn't go a day without your gun clearing leather. It happened every day.
Aye. but so I think when I mentioned that they are given a gun and go out and dominate, I'm not under the impression, I'm not trying to convey that you're taught that directly, but that's what the job entails.
Right.
And because they are given a gun and their job is to dominate other people, because that's what a traffic stop is, of course,
right.
And knowing that there's a very powerful police union, obviously New York is going to be a lot more powerful than Mesa, Arizona, I get that, but still very, very influential, and that they have immunity, that's not a good combination. And so, like I wrote in the book, when you have someone who has no responsibility for their actions violently dominating other people, there's a serious rush to that. And it's no surprise that this Jeff Payne did that. And I'm sure if somebody was to go through his record, they would see that this is not the first time that this has happened.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you that in New York City, it's a very liberal city, one of the most liberal cities, and there were, cops get complaints, Cops get taken off details. Cops get disciplined by civilian complaint review boards. Cops get suspended. And you never hear about it, but it happens. Believe me, I was a union delegate for 4 years. It happens, and
Really?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, look. Give me, in your experience, a kind of a percentage of, and we'll temper this with, I know that not every complaint against a police officer has merit. We can all. I mean, I got to give you that. But what kind of percentage would you say where police officers did find that that they were punished in some way for violating someone's rights or violating policy?
I mean, I'm sure there is statistics on that because the Corporation Council in New York City is very busy with complaints about cops, and there's trials all the time. I know that what they do to remedy is that cop gets so many complaints, forced complaints, and he's been to CCRB multiple times.
Well, Mike, let me put you on hold for a second. We're up against a break, but hold that thought. What was that phrase you just used?
What do you mean?
We'll come back. I'm sorry.
It was a New York thing. All I could tell you.
Okay, we'll be back in just a few moments with Mike from Long Island. We'll be right back. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project here on LRN.FM. I want to get right back into this. We're talking with Mike from Long Island, actually a Sachem guy, and so you got 2 strikes against you there. So for any critics, Mike, for any critics that would say that I have a real bias against police officers, no, I don't like what police officers do, and so here you're a former police officer. And you're from Sachem, so and still one of my favorite callers.
And listen, and I'm a dick too. But anyway, listen, I'm going to send you a pizza from Little Vincent's. Don't worry.
Well, you were talking about police officers because you were a union rep at one time, and you were talking about police officers being fined or sanctioned or punished for violations of policy or the ones that have maybe a history of use of force.
Cops get buried, Mark. They get buried, especially if there's an officer that shows that he's getting complaints all the time. He has a jacket on him that they'll take him out of a unit. I had an ex-partner of mine who had his force complaints was through the roof, and he was with me because I was the delegate, and he got called what they call flown. He was taken out of commands, put in other commands to bury him, make him go away. And he was a summons guy at one time. It's big business in New York City, writing tickets. It's big business, and when they say there's no such thing as a quota, that's bullshit. There is a quota. Guys are going out every day, and it's all they're doing is hurting the working man. I didn't really have the stomach for that type of work. I always had to be pressured into getting my number. I wasn't really into that stuff. I was really interested in getting bad guys, and I never went on the police department to do any harm to anybody, but it finds you in New York City. It finds you in Bed-Stuy, whether you like it or not, and I've dodged bullets, I've had them go over my head. It's no joke.
Well, I ask a lot of cops this, and if I've asked you this before, I apologize, but you because you didn't have to be a beat cop. You could have actually gone after, actually criminals by being a detective. I mean, was that ever an option?
Well, it was, but this would take a long time. This would be a long conversation, Mark. The NYPD is a very political organization. I could have become a boss too, but the bottom line is you take a multiple choice question test, and they get to put stripes or a bar on your collar, but that doesn't make you a leader of people. And there's a lot of problems with that system. The civil service system in that regard. in my opinion, especially in the world we live in today, where there's danger lurking all over the place. And I'm just losing my train of my thought. I'm old now, Mark. I'm sorry.
We're talking about whether being a detective was an option for you. So.
It was, but you want to know what it is today. The other problem is they brought in this thing to the New York City Police Department called CompStat. Everything is statistics, you know what I mean? And they were holding commanding officers of a precinct responsible for crimes of intent. We're talking robberies, burglaries, all your 7 major crimes where, you know, somebody's got it in their mind on the street to go out there and rob, rape, and pillage somebody, and they're holding the commanding officer responsible for that. Why are these numbers so high in your command? And the pressure is on from the politicians all the way down to the beat cop to do something about it. And their philosophy is hammer the people with minor summonses. You'll get a lot of the major players off the street for a while, and it'll lower the number. It'll lower your major crime numbers. That was the philosophy, and it got out of control. It's totally out of control right now as we speak, and that's why the pressure is on for a lot of good men and women who are out there trying to help people in communities, but everything is about money. It's everything, and I think you've said this, Mark. Everything about government, the pigs in government, is to separate people from their money. That's what it's really all about. Everything else is just a bullshit campaign about safety and protection. But that's pretty much I've woken up to a lot of this stuff, and I have to thank you again. I beat an order of protection on my own pro se. I had it vacated.
Oh, wow.
My wife filed it against me, and I challenged it properly. I filed orders to show cause for subject matter jurisdiction, and a specific judge never answered my orders to show cause. He never showed me any evidence of subject matter, and eventually I wound up. I did a writ of quo warranto before Christmas last year, and he recused himself 3 days after I filed it, and gave it to another judge, and immediately had a hearing, and then I won.
Wow, I'm glad to hear that. Wow. And this was on Long Island, in Suffolk?
Suffolk County, Central Islip.
Central Islip. Oh, well, that's always good to hear that.
Yeah. So, and you people like you, Mark, I've listened to your show quite often, and you're an inspiration to a lot of people to stand up and fight. You were for me, and I'm a retired cop, so I have a little bit of knowledge about what's going on out there. But and you're right about a lot of things. I didn't like hearing a lot of because you really went off on a rant. And
man.
You were really you were really ranting like a raving New Yorker. You know what I mean?
No. If I was in a New York state of mind, it would have been a lot. No, I posted that as a video. I did separate videos, so I did listen and watch the video because I was putting graphics up to it. So no, don't give it. No, that was nothing. That was that. And my wife works at a hospital, and this has really struck home for my wife because, she can put herself in that situation. That a lot of people that she knows are nurses and doctors and whatnot. And there was one doctor, and I don't know if this is true, but somebody posted on Reddit, and it was not black, the bad ones. And this guy was a physician, and he was saying that he has been seen where they have taken doctors out of emergency rooms. We just haven't heard of it.
That's crazy.
And the thing is, there are people's lives at stake here. So... Mark,
you have to understand, when a cop gets shot, where is he going? When a cop gets severely injured, where is he going? I don't want to bother these people. These people got to be my friends. That's why I would have punched that guy right in the face. I said, "What's the matter with you, stupid? Are you kidding me? You're going to lock up this nurse for what? Because she's following her rules? Get the boss down here. Let him make the decision. Why are you making it for him? You're an idiot."
To their credit, there was one limp-wristed attempt if you see in the video, there was a guy. There was someone who did
extremely limp. It was lame.
Yeah, it
I
was
would've punched him
terrible.
in the face,
well,
too.
Hold on, just one second. We'll go another segment. My name is Marc Stevens, talking with Mike in Long Island. We'll be back in just a moment, so don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. Brute force and ignorance, which is ironic since we're talking about the police. I couldn't help myself there, Mike.
It's okay.
I saw the opportunity. I had to jump on it there. So. Oh, man. I'm trying to remember where we were when we went to the break.
The guy, the lame attempt from the guy trying to.
Oh yeah. Have you? Let me ask you. Have you been in a situation before where a cop was getting, using too much force, or was getting too aggressive, and you had to intervene?
Oh yeah, I've taken shots in the back of the head.
No, wait. I mean, someone who used to work in Bed-Stuy saying he took shots to the back of the head has a whole different meaning.
Yeah, I mean punches, like not
oh,
shots.
Sure, I know. Wow.
But,
so did this cause you some problems in your squad?
No. You do the best you can to calm the situation down. Shit happens when adrenaline gets going, Mark. It just doesn't stop. I mean, especially when you're fighting for your life in a lot of situations. Especially domestics. It's a rough deal. You know what I mean? Because emotions are high. And the cop is coming in trying to calm things down, and then when somebody jumps on his back, it's it's fight or flight. I mean, you got to try to get control of the situation. There's a lot of different circumstances, but a lot of these confrontations on the street, and like in the ER, the only time I ever got into it with somebody in medical was when we brought an emotionally disturbed person or a prisoner, and they wanted us to uncuff them. And we would say, no, we're not doing that. You're going to have to treat him with the cuffs on, because if he gets away, I'm going to get fired. You're going to get in trouble. Somebody else is going to get hurt because this, this schizophrenic guy is out of control, or whatever the situation is. This drug addict who's high on meth, is going to hurt somebody. And a lot of times, that kind of
well, sure, yeah, we get that. I'm talking about as far as you having to, put back in line another police officer, and you said you did, and
yeah, I mean, listen, I've almost got into fistfights with my partner on the street,
because a lot of times when you hear whistleblowers talking about that, because they're like, well, why aren't more cops speaking out about it? And it's because of the culture. It's because you're part of an organization like a brotherhood, they consider, and a lot of times there is. Look what happened to Serpico is an extreme example of a police officer who is going against his own squad. I'm not saying. I said it was an extreme example because you're not always, your partner or you're someone in your squad's not going to shoot you, and you have to get the hell out of New York. But I'm sure that going against, you maybe you've seen it. I don't know. You were lucky they wasn't taken out on you, but I'm sure there were guys that were ostracized or given really bad assignments because they spoke up or they just stopped the wrong cop from abusing somebody.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to say there isn't a culture. We take care of our own. That's for damn sure. I mean, but it's not like any other organization. It's not like, gangs do the same thing. People on the street do the same thing, Mark. For every cop that you're going to find that does something wrong, there's about 100 skells out there doing worse than a cop.
Yeah, the difference, though, is...
I understand the difference because we're in a position of authority and all that stuff, and we're held to a higher standard. I get all that. But, I tell people all the time, I used to tell people, stop calling 911. If you don't want us to come, you don't want us to get involved, stop calling us.
Hey, I'm with you there, brother.
What are you calling me for?
I think one of the worst things people can do. Someone actually confronted me and they said, "Oh, yeah, if there's a problem, you're going to call 911." No. Because someone's definitely dying in that situation. Well, more likely going to die in a situation like that. But the difference is that the police are given a moral free pass for what they're doing. And they tend to get away. I know you're saying they get punished, and I'm not disagreeing with you there. However, when they are not treated the same way, if you right now, or especially me, it's just a regular Joe Blow plebe, okay, if we were to shoot a 12-year-old dead, we would not go home that night. We would be arrested and we would be investigated and probably charged. But police get to go home. So
yeah, well, that was the other thing you said about, the thing about, the signing out, going home at night. Listen, I was a delegate and I told my cops in a roll call, listen, the most important thing we do every day is go out there, do the best we can, and make sure we go home to our families at night. Is that the same thing, what you were talking about?
I think it's the attitude has changed, and there are a lot of police officers and reps that you can see that were on TV. It's that our job. It's most important that we get home at night. And now, is that as widespread as I may have portrayed it on the show? It may not be. It may not be as widespread an attitude as I may have portrayed it.
Right.
But it is a common attitude.
I was getting mad at stuff like that when you were saying it to the extreme, and I know where you were coming from. I understand what was going on, and like I said, I'm in a different place in my life today, and I could talk about things that I couldn't talk about before. You know what I mean? Probably, because I'm separated from it, and it's not an easy thing. You know what I mean? There is a thin line there between, you know what I mean? But I can tell you this much: there are a lot of guys out there that are applying common sense that don't want to do the things that a lot of times their boss are telling them to do. And a lot of times, like I said, I could have been considered a boss fighter because hey, listen, they wanted me to do something, and apparently this guy detective, from what I understand, was being forced to do something from his bosses. But now I hear they're recanting that, But I still wouldn't have done it. I would have forced my boss to come to the ER. I said, listen, you want her arrested? You do it. I'm not doing it. And if I'm doing something unlawful, then suspend me.
Unfortunately, though, Mike, from my experience and the other cops that I've spoken to and other people I've interviewed, I've had other cops on, some current members. There was someone Armando knows in Texas, and guys like what you just described yourself as, you are a small part of the force, and that's really unfortunate. Because a lot of guys go in with good intentions.
Yeah, but a lot of guys just run away too. They run away, like those guys in an ER. They ran away, even though they were there. They ran away. You
could see that guy. He knew that
he was out of line.
Pain was out of line. Big time, and he backed off. And so I don't know. They said that there was another police officer who was involved with the criminal investigation. I don't know if it was the guy who we're talking about in the video, or maybe it was the lieutenant who came in later and actually practically admitted that it was a false arrest, and that, well, I think the quote is, because more of the video has been released, and so he was saying, if we knew that their policy was to draw the blood immediately, we already had a blood draw, this could have ended very different.
Yeah, the blood draw was bullshit. I don't understand why they wanted the blood draw. It didn't make sense to me.
The guy was a cop. The victim was a cop, and he was a reserve police officer.
But that's just it. He was a victim.
Yes, but you do look. I already mentioned on the show that I don't like the idea of implied consent when it's something that you have no choice in. So if you get right down to it, if the driver's license legally, the CDL legally is implied consent, then right. There is a discrepancy between the law, which is an ass, right. And then the hospital's policy, which is to protect the victim of that horrific accident. Well, right. We're up against a break, so just hold on, my friend. My name is Marc Stevens.
Go.
Oh, you got to go?
I gotta go.
Oh, okay. Hey, I appreciate having you on, Mike.
I'll be calling again.
All right, thanks again. Hey, my name's Marc Stevens. You're listening to the No State Project. We'll be back with the last segment of the No State Project in just a moment, so don't go away. Yes, welcome back to the No State Project. I'm Marc Stevens at the last segment of the No State Project. It goes quickly. We'll be all available. The audio will be available. Oh, that's all we have is audio. Today at markstevens.net, I will also post it as a video. Maybe I'll put some graphics in, or maybe I'll just take some certain segments of the show and put graphics and get that posted, hopefully today. Of course, thanks to Matthew and Calvin for the computer, which I did the video yesterday. Well, I did the 30-minute video, the one about that Mike, our former, the last caller, who had to go, unfortunately, was talking about. 30-minute HD, 30 frames a second, 1080, 30 minutes long, took about 15 minutes or so to render. It was pretty damn fast. And the one from yesterday, The Call of Shame, which just had some graphics added to the audio, 6 minutes long. It probably just took a couple minutes. It was pretty damn fast. So we'll get that all up at markstevens.net and my YouTube channel, No State Project. And I guess there's a little bit of time that I have remaining here, especially for people who are new to the No State Project or just finding me recently because they want to learn how to effectively defend against traffic tickets. And I do my best to use only lay terms, but can't always do that. And some, just from watching TV, there are certain phrases that are commonly known, like cross-examination, burden of proof, stuff like that. I wanted to speak a little bit about Scar's court proceeding and some of the reports that I had gotten. I was hoping Scar would be able to call the show. He was 3 for 3 until yesterday, and then he was convicted yesterday. It's just traffic stuff. He's not in jail or anything. And I think he's got a pretty good chance of getting this reversed on appeal just on the issue of denial of effective cross-examination. And we touched on this briefly with Rick, what happened to Rick in Illinois, because a lot of times the judge is so pro-prosecution, just like when we have in California, we filed a motion to motion for judicial notice with the demur, because we want it to be a little more difficult for the judge to just deny everything. All we want him to do is say that these are the standards or the principles that govern these proceedings, that they're adversarial in nature, that for every criminal prosecution, there has to be a corpus delicti, which is an act and a result. Basic things like that. That a valid cause of action is the violation of legal right and damage. And they deny it. And they do that out of, and you can expect that when you get the motion to dismiss package from me. It doesn't mean it's all, yes, we do have it granted, but more often than not, unfortunately, things get tossed out when you actually show up, which is what happened with Brett in California recently, which you can get in markstevens.net under the success stories. So we know that they are very, very pro-prosecution. There's no, you could come out and with your anecdotes and you can say, well, I was a prosecutor and I know that the judges hated me. Well, that doesn't mean that they're not biased in your favor. They may not like a particular prosecutor, but that doesn't mean that they're not pro-state. They're still going to be they're on the same team. You can hate your a particular teammate. It doesn't mean you hate your team. There are plenty of judges that hate the IRS. Yeah, well, point to one that actually rules against them when they're wrong. Dead wrong. Yeah, you're not going to find too many. You won't find any in the tax court. That's for damn sure. So, what happened in Chandler, not in Chandler, Arizona, it was in Tucson, Arizona. If it was in Chandler, I probably could have been able to go. But it was kind of typical. It's something that we have to expect. You know that when you're going into these court proceedings, that the judge probably was a prosecutor and is very biased in favor of the prosecution. And so everything was just denied. And the thing is, knowing that they always want to go and support the prosecutor, we can use that against them. And even when you telegraph this, they know Scar going in. They know going into this, Scar is challenging the foundation of the prosecutor's case, which is Scar was physically in Arizona. Our rules apply, and that gives us jurisdiction, and that is the basis of probable cause that the laws were violated because you're saying that they apply to him, and that when the police officer goes on cross-examination, he is a witness. Yes, he wrote the ticket, but somebody else is actually prosecuting this. You have to have personal first-hand knowledge. Now, I'm saying this, I know I'm repeating myself, but new people listening, and it's more for you guys. When the police officer makes these claims that the Constitution and laws apply because you're physically in Arizona and he has jurisdiction to stop you, a probable cause that you violated the law, those are all legal conclusions. And even that when the judge and prosecutor know exactly what he's doing, they still deny you and or me effective cross-examination. That's why I mentioned to Rick that a lot of times, yes, more often than not, our only real hope of getting this thing thrown out is going to be the cross-examination, because they will not allow the police officer to answer questions regarding his legal conclusions. Okay? And this is why they lie to you incessantly, stating you can only ask the police officer questions about the facts about what happened at the traffic stop. Well, that's all you're doing. But they're so desperate to protect the prosecution. They are so biased that when the prosecutor makes a wrong objection, so you ask the question, you've already determined, then the cop has already stated that he witnessed you violate the law and that the laws apply to you. The moment Scar asked the witness, the cop, what evidence do you rely on to prove that just because I'm in Arizona, the laws apply and that you had jurisdiction to stop me? The prosecutor made the objection that I have been repeating on the show, and I've been doing it on the website for 20 years. It's the same one. In 20 years, they do the same thing. Objection calls for a legal conclusion. The witness is not competent to testify. That's what was reported to me, okay? And Scar can give us a first-hand account, hopefully on Wednesday or next Saturday. So the judge just sustains the objection, even though all Scar did was ask for the facts. The cop has already given all these legal conclusions. See, this is the thing. They don't give a damn about whether he's qualified to make the legal conclusions that support the system. So if he is repeating a sacred cow, great, but they're not going to allow you to cross-examine him on that, and that is not fair. It doesn't matter if you say Marc Stevens is a charlatan, he's a con man. There is absolutely no merit to that, and there's no merit to denying somebody like Scar or me or you the opportunity to question a police officer on their legal conclusions. If he's qualified to give the legal conclusion, then he has to be subjected to cross-examination when he makes them on the record. If he's not qualified to make those statements, if he's not qualified to give legal conclusions, you have no business putting him on the stand. You have no business forcing Scar or me or anyone else to defend against his accusations, because this is the thing. You are not defending against necessarily the prosecutor's legal conclusions. The prosecutor is just trying to prove the police officer's legal conclusions are true beyond a reasonable doubt. The police officer is the one who made the legal conclusions. This is not a real crime when you're in traffic court. All you're doing is going against it is a mala prohibita. It is only wrong because a politician said so, because the laws that they created out of thin air said so. It is not like you've been indicted where a prosecutor is it's the cop. And the cop is the one who has to have the proof. What did he base his probable cause on that the laws applied to you and you were violated them? Well, there isn't any evidence. None. Absolutely none. Which is appropriate because I have absolutely no time left. This has been September 9, 2017 edition of the No State Project, live from the Fortified Compound in Mesa, Arizona. I'm glad for everyone tuning in. We'll have this on the website today, and we will be live Wednesday. So till then, salud.